I had an 80-year-old lady that came there with her grandson to learn about Bitcoin with him. And, you know, the first hurdle there and challenge was when I first started off, and I'm doing the hands-on demo after I did a couple of like slides and things. And I said, okay, now copy and paste this URL into this box. And she raises her hand. This old lady raises her hand. She goes, I don't know how to copy and paste.
This episode is sponsored by NordVPN. I've been using NordVPN for years since it doesn't log your data, has over 5,300 super fast servers in 59 countries, and I can pay in my favorite cryptocurrency, Dash, which is important since I'm unbanked. Take back your online privacy. Sign up now with the promo code DCN and get 68% off, or just $3.71 per month, plus an additional month free. Go to nordvpn.org/DCN or use the coupon code DCN. So, hey everyone, I have the wonderful pleasure today of speaking with the one and only, and I do mean only, Crypto Stache. How's it going, man?
What's going on, Joel? Thanks so much, man, for having me out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so first off, what came first, Crypto Stache or the stash itself?
That's actually a really good question. So they kind of came, you know, well, I guess the Crypto Stache brand, you know, really did come from having the mustache. You know, I actually grew this mustache out in 2013 because I was throwing a festival at the time called the Folk Revival Festival. It was a bluegrass, roots, and you know, country music festival. And so I was like, I'm going to grow a mustache out to enter in my own beard and mustache competition I'm throwing. Maybe I can get the prizes back because we were pretty bootstrapped, man. So I grew it out and then realized when we had the contest, like, no, these people in the beard and mustache community are far more advanced than I am in the facial hair category. And so I didn't even enter, and I was like, but everyone liked it. I mean, I liked how it looked, and so I just kind of kept it from then. And I did the festival for about 5 years. It was about a 5,000 person event there, and it was pretty well received. So the mustache stuck around from then. And then, you know, when I started getting a bunch of questions and stuff in late 2016, trying to talk to friends about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, you know, I was getting a lot of the same things over and over again, kind of questions. So I was like, you know, I'm just going to create like a little just rinky-dink blog and just start jotting down my thoughts, you know. And I'm like, well, I got to have a name. I got to get a website address. And so went with Crypto Stache.
Yeah, I don't see many of those in the game at all. And that's kind of funny because there's been a lot of different connotations with, you know, people in, you know, the hipster world, as it will, or whatever else. And it's kind of interesting to see. It's definitely not one of the craziest brandings I've seen out there. And it is fun to know that it is kind of an authentic thing that came from something real back in the day that just like, let's just like run with it. Let's run with who I am organically. There's some other, you know, weird superhero themed people or some other weird, you know, everyone's trying to have their little thing. And, you know, anyway, how long have you been in the crypto space in general? That seems to be a good indicator of where people's perspectives come from, because depending on like what age you start in, there's like a lot of history that comes along with it for perspective. And so I think there's a lot of, especially people are thinking like, oh, all these people that are just talking about sick gains on YouTube are just people that came in around 2017, bought into the hype, and they still haven't let go. And so, so when did you get involved in this whole thing?
So I first really got involved in the end of 2013. So that's when I really dove into what Bitcoin was. I had actually seen it kind of before that, in the year prior, but I was like, man, this doesn't make sense. Like, it was a quick link I saw, and I was like, oh, you can go buy Bitcoin here. That's interesting. I'm gonna go look at it. I'm a tech guy, I work in the tech industry, so it was just kind of perusing some forums. And I went into this website in 2012, and I saw like, oh, you can buy Bitcoin. And then, wait, there's Litecoin too? That's a scam, man. This is a scam for sure. And so I didn't see anything about it for like at least over another year. And then into 2013, it came back into my radar. And that's when I really I was like, I'm going to take a second look at this now. And I'm seeing more and more about this, you know, and that's when I started reading on Bitcoin Talk and then read their white paper. And that's when it just clicked. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this is way bigger than what I really first saw and what I thought when I originally saw this, you know, because no one did a great job of really describing it. It was just kind of a surface level investigation there in 2012. So yeah, I started researching into 2013, and then the beginning of 2014, I bought my first Bitcoin, and then Mount Gox.
Wow. Yeah.
So then I just kind of hodled through that whole like 2 year bear market, and I didn't look at anything. I wasn't watching crypto. I was just like, all right,
Hmm.
well, I socked some away, and it's all good. And then yeah, the 2016 was really, I was like, hey, I have some Bitcoin. I'm gonna go check on that. And then I realized, look, oh, man, the environment has definitely grown a lot. Now
Hmm.
there's Ethereum. That's interesting. And so I got back into it, started really, diving into the community, diving into what was going on in the greater crypto world outside of Bitcoin. And it just, it got me. I was like, all right, I got to be more into this. I run a web development company, so I'm very up on what's going on, and kind of cutting edge stuff. I have to kind of be, and um, so seeing this and seeing the potential, and in particular the potential with Ethereum and with programmable type of money, or smart contracts. It definitely was like, oh, this is the next level. Bitcoin is amazing because of the properties it brings. Immutability, censorship resistance, which is the big one,
Of course.
and be able to transfer value without a third party being involved, which I loved. But then seeing that there was much more coming from this space was really interesting. So I jumped in, created a website after trying to talk to people about these things, and the kind of rest was history. And it just snowballed from there. Honestly, I didn't like intend to be a content creator or be a YouTuber. That was never like, oh man, I'm gonna get on YouTube and just go crush it and teach people about Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, that's one of those ways it's kind of meant to be and not just a hustle. And so it's sounding like you kind of, as anyone should, just saw that this was something that was big and you should probably look into it. But then just something that's big means you buy some and then the price goes up and then down and you don't look at it for a few years. But what gets you into it and staying into it at a certain sustained level is some kind of hook. So it's
Yeah.
sounding like that hook was more or less Ethereum. Is that kind of correct, or is there more to the story than that?
I mean, it wasn't necessarily just Ethereum. It was seeing how much the ecosystem itself had kind of, blossomed since last
Hmm.
I checked. When I first got into Bitcoin, that in 2014, or like I saw it, I was like, oh, this is amazing, but I didn't really jump into like the community aspect of it. I didn't really go beyond much, like Bitcoin talk, just looking a little bit there and then making a purchase on Coinbase at the time.
Of course.
Yeah, and so I wasn't really heavily invested with my time.
Hmm.
With my money for sure. What I could afford at the time is like that, which was, I obviously wish I could have bought more. I mean, everyone always says that, no matter what time I
Yeah,
think
of
they bought
course.
Bitcoin, except for I guess if they bought at all time high. But still,
Yeah, it
if
could
they
be a little
know
rough.
better, they'll probably still be kicking themselves if they had not bought in between those times. But yeah, it was really just the blossoming of the community, seeing that this cryptocurrency ecosystem had really started to grow,
Hmm.
and there was much more going on than just, hey, it's great. There's digital gold essentially, or P2P cash, whatever you want to look at Bitcoin. There was so much more going on, and it was like, oh, this is getting really interesting. I just want to see what this is all about. And so yeah, so that I think it wasn't necessarily just Ethereum, but yeah, Ethereum was definitely one of those things where it was like, wow, this is a really interesting development,
Yeah.
and I want to see where this is going to go.
Well, that's one thing I think that a lot of people kind of have a hard time wrapping their head around is that Ethereum kind of is the alt space. And like I checked on, CoinGecko, the top 100 tokens, and 51 out of 100 were Ethereum based.
Yeah,
Ethereum and Ethereum based or whatever, which is like, wow, that's huge. Just all a giant chunk of the ecosystem is around that. But then, of course, there's also like the sad side of it, which is scaling problems. Now you can't move any of your tokens. And there's a whole bunch
yeah,
of different ones that I've, for example, I use basic attention token. I've used, I use Presearch for like the search engine credits and stuff. And like
yeah.
there's a bunch of different ones that I'm like, oh, now I can't move them. Oops. Or stable
That's the
coins or
magic of
whatever.
ERC-20 right there, man.
Yeah, it's the magic and the pain, It's like the magic is you just get to attach it to something that just works, but then the pain is, well, what happens when that thing that just works doesn't? And so,
Yeah.
why for you does cryptocurrency really matter? Now, like you could be doing a million things in life. You'd be caring about different things. This is a cool tech. There's a lot of cool tech out there. You could be into drone racing for all I care, right? But like, there's something that like, what was the thing that really matters? Like, when there's dark days and you just like, man, I want to get up and do this anymore. Or like, I just want to do something that's easier, more stable, or whatever. When you, the thing that pulls you back into crypto, that like, why is this not just another thing to do? What for that? What is that for you?
I think really it all boils down to being able to opt out of the current broken monetary system. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when I really like look at all the pieces there, I think that that's one of the things that I love the most, and that then you can extrapolate into a bunch of different fields. So not only does that mean fiat money and the greater system that we are kind of beholden to, I will say, that we don't have much of a choice but being in, we
Mm-hmm.
can, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general, allow us to opt out of that system and just simply say, we're building something brand new. We're building a system that we feel works. We don't need to be a part of your system. I don't need to try and change the system. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
go protest about the US dollar or about the Fed, printing trillions of
Of
dollars,
course.
inflating our economy and all the other things, fractional reserve and all of the things that I don't necessarily like about where we are at financially with our country and with our currency. And then that, like I said, then that kind of trickles down, we'll say, to other things too. So, ownership of things digitally and being able to prove ownership of things like that, and attaching value to those things so that you kind of, get into this Ethereum ecosystem with things like NFTs, where, you can do a lot more with those types of things with kind of the programmable version of the store value too.
Yeah, and that's that kind of resonates a lot because back in 2012, 2013, I was trying to find ways of spending gold. Like that was literally how that kind of got in because it comes from you learn the system sucks and then
Yeah.
it's like you're tired of trying to go let's go get the I voted sticker and like that's going to change the world and like sometimes it can in certain ways but just people have been trying that for hundreds of years and we're this the system is rigged, as I'm sure a certain famous
Yeah.
someone said. And so I was saying, like, well, because I grew up in the north of Mexico where I saw the value of like the peso fluctuate down versus the dollar. And I remember old coins that were no good anymore. Those are the old pesos. They don't work, the new ones. And so, like, always when I'm seeing the purchasing power of the dollar going down, I'm just like, this is like, we're not talking about this, that they're just printing money and doing whatever they want with it. And so trying to use something better, gold, and then when I discovered digital gold, I was like, oh, okay, this is what it's all about. And so I'm sure I think there might be something different in the future where there's other people who start to get involved with the space because they see, oh, I've been meaning to make, you know, asset issuance more efficient, or I've been meaning to add greater public transparency to something. Willing to add greater redundancy to applications or like other things like that. But for the most part, it seems like the hardcore crypto people of today all came from the same sort of root of the money system or the system, but specifically the money system doesn't work. And this is
Yeah.
something that works. It's so when you're thinking about that, then you dive headfirst into content creation and other kinds of stuff. So what's like the big thing you're working on, you care most about? I know the videos, the YouTube channel, the all that is probably the more visible aspect. Is that the thing that you're prioritizing the most?
No, not really, to be perfectly honest. I do crypto as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my full-time gig, so I'm not over here just, plotting the next video or,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the next coin that I'm going to purchase on Uniswap. I'm not a day trader either, so I do trade. I guess I'm more of like an investor slash swing trader.
Mm-hmm.
And so the most important thing to me, really, and where I'm focused right now, is kind of bridging the gap between what I'm doing in my web development company, which I've been running for over a decade, and what I have interest in the cryptocurrency space, and trying to merge the two together. By moving more into developing blockchain-based projects, or developing, those types of things that incorporate tokens or cryptocurrency-based assets. So that's really my main goal.
Mm-hmm.
I do the videos. I do focus a lot on NFTs and on blockchain gaming, because I'm a big gamer. I've always been a big gamer, and when I got into this and started seeing how things were going, I was like, the biggest use case here for what's going on in crypto is going to happen in gaming.
Yeah.
There are, 1.6 billion gamers across the globe, if not more at this point. And it's a $160 billion industry on average per year. And it's smashing other entertainment industries. Even like movies and television things combined, like they just can't compete. So once gamers really see the benefits and development students really see the benefits of what blockchain technology can do for them, I think we're going to see kind of a paradigm shift there from what we kind of see now with the monetization models to what we're barely starting to see here with the kind of play to earn models that cryptocurrency brings into play. So
Yeah.
that's really my focus. I'm really focusing on developing projects, bridging the gap between my current business and what I'm doing in crypto, with doing that in a couple of different ways right now. But always looking for more things to work on, more people to work with, and projects to work on. And with a focus towards the blockchain gaming and NFT space. So
Yeah, I mean that's something that I mean I haven't been a gamer mostly in like about a decade or something. It's been too much other life has sort of taken over, but it's something I definitely get the allure of, and it's something that I think that a lot of people are really sleeping on with crypto, and it's not like it's not being talked about, but just the way I've seen, for example, I do check transaction charts and things like that. And Litecoin has been just always kind of down there in like the, 10 to 30 or 40,000 transactions a day for just many years. Just kind of like always like a little bit of Bitcoin spillover, but not much else. And then as soon as Lightbringer came out, all of a sudden I just saw those transactions go woo, just up through the roof. And I'm not entirely convinced that every single one of those transactions needs to be a blockchain transaction, but right now it's a metric for actual like usage. And have you used Twetch at all before? Do you know what Twetch is?
Yeah, I've checked it out. I haven't used it actually, though. I know what it is, though. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I always recommend people use, not because it's like the best social media platform you'll ever use, but because if you're trying to learn stuff, you'll learn a lot of weird behavioral lessons in it, like what kind of content works because of the way you charge like 2 cents to tweet and like 8 cents to send a picture, and every time you reply to a comment, it's a little bit of that. But there's a gamification aspect of it where whoever, if you share something and everyone comments on that post or shares, or then they share, it's like you're top of a pyramid and all the activity kind of some of it trickles back up to you. And so because of that, there's like it's not really a social network so much as it is a game. Like people are playing it like a game, and it's very addictive to some people when they get into it. And there's just something about that gamification of things that, first off, you're trying to tell people, oh, why don't you just close your bank account and start using this digital money to live off of and stuff. You'll get a couple lunatics like me, but other than that, nobody, because it's like a big step. It's very serious. And then, but the people are going to take a chance with a game. They're just going to be like, oh, I'll do this. Oh yeah, I'll buy $5 of this token and then just send it and receive it. Who cares? And then they'll just get hooked, and then it's just kind of part of it. And imagine having to do a micropayment on your credit card every single time you wanted to buy a new power up or something. That would be a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we already see kind of microtransactions in games, but a lot of times I think that you're right. Gamification is something that it makes tasks easier for people to consume and more interesting. When you just say, here's, your task is to learn about the financial system. Most people don't want to do that in general, So that's why in crypto we have people who are just more about kind of get rich quick versus a lot of other things, which is kind of the predominant nature right now, I think, in the populace. But gamification, you're right. It leads people into wanting to do things and try things out because, hey, it's going to be fun.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of interesting lessons you can learn, whether or not you're seeking to learn them or not, by playing games. And because of the economic incentives of things, I'm huge into economic incentives, and it's surprising how few people in crypto even think about that. Like, if this costs something, then you'll get less of it, or you'll get less of it unless people value it to a certain extent and stuff. Like, just adding a small fee to do an action means that, like, I'm sure you've been on platforms and there's a million crypto scammer people saying, click my referral link, Telegram link, all this kind of stuff. Very low percentage, but they just throw it out there because they have nothing but time on their hands, or automation, which makes time even more abundant. And then, but it doesn't cost them anything, and they might get a sucker or two. But imagine if they had to pay a half cent or something to post. All of a sudden, none of that. It would just disappear overnight. Like you'd have like one or two more sophisticated scammers, but all those low-level bottom feeders clogging up Facebook threads or Twitter comments, giving away Ethereum, here you go. A lot of that would just probably go away. And it's fun when you're trying to say, hey, how does this monetary system work that we created? That's a awkward spot to be doing behavioral experimentation when you're having people's money, like a whole system like that. But if you're just playing a game, it's just like, oh, what happens in Splinterlands if I do this thing? And oh, it makes people tend to do that.
Well,
Like,
the Fed doesn't have a problem doing it, so, but I get you. Yeah, most
yeah,
people in general probably would though.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely not the sane way of going towards
Yeah.
things. Yeah. So that kind of brings to the whole crypto tuber world thing, and I know that I've friends with people such as Omar who've been in the game for a while, and it's kind of a crazy world to think about people doing just like putting their thing into that. And in the old, what one called maybe the boomer world, you have a lot of people just still looking at trusted established publications for news and authority on this and that. But most
Yeah.
people, I think, get their crypto knowledge from YouTube. It's like 2/3 or something huge like that. And so, first off, what is it like being a being, as you said, like a hobbyist who nonetheless controls the keys to the kingdom of the financial revolution, where people are coming to people like you for their primary source of information, most likely? Is that that crown a little heavy on your shoulders?
I wouldn't say I'm wearing quite much of a crown at this point, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest. There's a lot of other guys out there that have a lot larger
Mm-hmm.
channels than I. I do focus on putting out quality content. I don't really focus on kind of clickbaity type titles. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of my stuff is very educationally based or tutorial review functionally based. So I do focus on a lot of those types of things. Like I said, because I don't necessarily do this as a full-time job,
Mm-hmm.
I can't get as much content out there as I would like to on a daily basis, but it's still a difficult task. And, I do still have a great community around me, my community of stashers, I call them. And, even though it's not the largest community out there in crypto, we're a very tight knit group. And, I do feel responsibility to make sure that things I'm putting out there are quality, and they're things I've tested personally. You know,
Yeah.
I I sometimes I'll do a paid review here and there. It's very few and far in between, but it's always something I've actually gone and tested and used myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't, because I get hit up all the time. I mean, like every day I open my inbox and there's people like, "Hey, paid opportunity, blah blah," and there's so much, and most of it's just crap. It's just scammy bullshit projects that sometimes I try even to respond to everyone just saying, "Not thank you, no thank you, no thank you,
Mm-hmm.
not interested, not interested." Because I like to be that kind of guy who's not just ignoring everything, but it does get to a point where like sometimes I just got to click delete because it just overwhelms my inbox. So
Yeah. What level do you think that kicks in at? Like, did you see like a subscriber threshold where like as soon as you hit like 1,000 or whatever it was, then all of a sudden you get flooded, or has it just been a slow tide over the years at any level?
it's been kind of a slow tide, I would say. It's not like I hit, a certain
Mm-hmm.
level and it's like, bam, all of a sudden people are contacting me. It's just I kept building a following. Like I said, I did it very organically. I've never like paid for followers,
Mm-hmm.
which I know a lot of YouTubers have done. We've definitely seen that over the years here. And because for me, it's not a race. I'm not trying to get to 1 million followers, 100,000 followers. I honestly don't really care. I put out the content I put out because it's things that I'm interested in, or it's things that the people who I talk with in my community daily are interested in. And I try and just be as helpful as possible, is what it really comes down to. That's always been my main goal overall, with the content I'm creating, with the website that I have, with the articles that I publish. Is just be helpful. People need help a lot of times, and there's a lot of beginners out there, people who are sometimes afraid to ask questions because they've been ridiculed on posts on Twitter or in comments on YouTube or what it
Yeah.
may be. And you see people, and then you see content creators making fun of these people too and treating them like shit, or bullying them. And I'm just not. That's not really what I stand for. And so I try and create an environment where everyone can feel safe to discuss things in my Telegram group, or be able to ask questions no matter how stupid or basic they may think it is. There's always going to be somebody else out there that has that same question but was afraid to ask it because they think there's going to be some sort of repercussion. And that's really what I try and foster with my content and doing things. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a balance of responsibility and still getting visibility. It's crazy how the videos that are always a little bit more clickbaity in title or in thumbnail definitely get this better response. Like if
Hmm.
I very ever rarely drop something like "get rich quick" or "how you can 20x your investment," because that's just not how I do it. But every time, if ever I do, I can almost guarantee that video is going to be a well-watched video for some reason. And I think, like I said, just speaks to the type of people who are in crypto. And so,
Yeah. Or
get rich quick is on everyone's mind at most point here.
yeah, or at the very least, don't miss out on getting rich when you could have. Now,
Right.
that's the thing that's kind of funny is have you been able to measure in some kind of a way, whether it's from comments or whether it's from clicks on links or whatever, or from subscribers, that like some videos might get a lot of like just someone just clicks to see what it's about, but then they click off or whatever,
Mhm.
versus some of the less spicy content ends up getting a lot more actual quality engagement. Have you been able to like watch that, or is it just that people engage just it just all goes up with like a clickbait kind of a situation?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on the content. I can see trends in putting out different styles of content. So the stuff that maybe is a little bit more clickbaity. Yeah, I mean, it's going to do a little bit more well in views, depending on the length of that content.
Hmm.
It really is going to depend on how much watch time that video is going to get. So I try to find I find that shorter videos are always good, but not too short. you know
Of
and
course.
yeah, keeping it very direct and very concise. Try not to ramble too much. Sometimes I get off on tangents and shit, but
Yeah, of
I generally
course.
make straight on course. And yeah, so it really does depend on the actual type of content that I'm putting out there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, anytime I go with a sort, the title and the thumbnail are always a big part of getting views on a video. Most people who are looking at channels like this and look at things, that's all they're looking at. They're looking at views. They're not necessarily looking at watch time, things like that. They're not looking at those. They're not getting access to those types of metrics. So views are what they kind of go by, which is
Hmm.
why a lot of people in the crypto or just content creator space in general will buy a lot of views, or they'll buy followers so they can pump those numbers, which then looks great to sponsors or paid people, paid content providers. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that's an important point about education as well. That that's one of those reasons why maybe YouTube is one of those places people go to, because crypto's a weird world. Like it doesn't. If you think about any other world that you're in, it's kind of one of the most ill-defined, I would say, worlds. For me, it's very clear like what it is and why it's important. But for like the
Right.
average human being, if you're like, okay, there's a gaming community, like, well, these people love to play the game, or if there's a, people love like they're a smartphone enthusiast of some kind. They're like, oh, here
Yeah.
they talk about real things that people use in everyday life, or there's a car group, or there's or whatever. And crypto is like this weird space where it's like investors, but not just investors, sort of enthusiast combinations.
Yeah.
There is no such thing for the most part as like a crypto user, other than a few very small exceptions. Like most people use it ish, but like they invest in it and then they try it out and all this. And so it's harder. A lot of people just, you have these articles talking about, oh, this coin and this, Uniswap is going through the roof and this and that. And people are like, oh, I should be participating in this, but I don't know what that even means. And so, like, how do I swap a uni? Like, they don't know what's going on. And then, if they click on an actual video that doesn't just say sit gains, they can say, all right, this is what it is. This is how it works. And this is, how to get some. This is how to use the actual exchange. This is, click through. And then they can't kind of know where to land from there. But I think it is kind of a funny thing. We're talking about trying to educate people, and that reminded me of course, the ill-fated Peter McCormack tweet where he says that he doesn't know what an XPub key is, and people just jumped on him all over the place like that. And let me be honest, like I'm a heavy-duty user of this stuff, but the only reason I know what an XPub key is because I needed to like I was trying to help set up some apps and stuff and set up like a merchant app and like, oh, input your XPub key. Like, what is that? What does that do? And then like it's only because I ran into the issue that I needed to become educated to that level. And some people are, be like, "Oh, you're a noob, you suck." Okay, whatever. Like no one knows until it actually works. You know.
Right, and that goes back to what I was just saying before, is that people are afraid to ask questions and put it out there because they're going to get ridiculed. And the higher you are up on the popularity totem,
Mm-hmm.
the more you're going to be susceptible to that. And it's unfortunate because he just maybe he just needed a little bit of advice and learning. But you're right, people come out of the woodworks and try and just
Mm-hmm.
belittle somebody like that. And whether you like him or not, I mean, we shouldn't be discouraging people from learning, but that happens so often here in crypto
Of course.
that it starts to piss me off, and I don't like engaging with those types of people because that's not what I'm about.
Yeah, for sure. And I do find that it tends to be, it's not. It tends to be that people are trying to pass themselves off as experts. That if you're not an expert, you don't belong there. But expert in what? And it just seems to be, let's just create this illusion of expertise and build it up as high as we can, do as many little, buzzwords as we can like deftly maneuver through the language of crypto. And the better we are at the language of crypto, the better we must be at crypto, whatever that even means. But what does
Right.
that mean? And so, like, for example, the only reason you need to know an extended public key is if you're a user or an app developer or something, and you just need to know, oh, I got to put this in here, and then I get a new address every time. This is how HD wallets work. This is how regular wallets work. Like, who really needs to know that? And more importantly, does Peter McCormack need to know that in order to qualify as the expert he purports to be? Does he purport to be an expert that needs to know that? Or does he just purport to be a journalist, educator, or whatever? And I'm not familiar enough with the extent of his work to be able to answer that for him. But it is kind of an interesting kind of a point where no one wants to be. People love to use these words like immutability and then things like that, and then they just don't know. We're Turing complete. That's another thing that probably no one knows what that even means. They're able to recite a dictionary definition, but they don't know what that means or why does it care, or it's sound money and scarcity and like, okay, those are things. Do you understand them, or do you just know how to repeat the definitions?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, there's really no experts out there in crypto, or very few that I would consider this person as truly an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see a problem with that, to be perfectly honest. This is an industry that's barely 10 years old. You look at most other industries out there where you do have these industry experts or people who have been working in these industries for decades and they're well established. But cryptocurrency changes so incredibly fast too,
Mm-hmm.
where even just a couple of months ago, we have new terms, new definitions of things, new directions that things have gone. And you're like, oh, what, you don't know about Uniswap, or you don't know about sushi or yams? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, just keeping up with some of this stuff is incredibly hard for people even like me who are in it and looking at it every single day, multiple hours a day. Even I can't keep up. So to think that the average user can do that is just it's ridiculous. So when it comes down to like, yeah, experts and those types of things, like, I think that we're all learning. That's the way I present myself. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy who has technical background. I understand some of these basic elements of this and some of the higher level tech stuff, and I just try and present things to people simply. I understand that when you talk about the level of expertise and of comprehension out there is going to be very different across who's watching your videos or your content. My number one thing has always been like, if I'm educating people, I want to be able to describe this incredibly complex thing in a very simplistic way where even your grandma can understand what's going on and get that. I used to do in-person classes actually in my
Mm.
city teaching people about Bitcoin. And this was in 2017. And, it was one of those things where it's like, well, not everyone learns online. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't learn through YouTube videos. Are you saying, oh, most people do? Well, I mean, yeah, a lot of people do, but there's a lot of people that actually really just don't. They don't prefer that platform for learning. And so I have a classroom in front of me of, 20, 30 people, varying different ranges of people from, our age, yeah, all the way up to, people who were in like their 80s. I had an 80-year-old lady that came there with her grandson to learn about Bitcoin with him. And, the first hurdle there and challenge was when I first started off, and I'm doing the hands-on demo after I did a couple of like slides and things. And I said, okay, now copy and paste this URL into this box. And she raises her hand. This old lady raises her hand. She goes, I don't know how to copy and paste.
Yeah. That's
So I walked over there. I showed
mhm.
her. I said, "Look, it's as simple as Control C and then Control V. There you go."
Mhm.
And so, you know, you got to understand that being able to describe things in the most simple way is really
Mhm.
going to be the key to education. And, you know, the key to education is people wanting to do it, you know, which is not always going to be the case, unfortunately. A lot of people just don't want to know how things work or how things do it, and they just want to use it. You know, no one knows how to, like you said, no one knows how a toaster works or how a DVD works or maybe how what Turing Complete really is. They don't care, and they probably don't really need to know, you know.
Mhm. Yeah,
If
they
your TV breaks, you're not going to like bust it open and start trying to fix the LEDs inside of it. You're going to
yeah.
take it to a qualified repairman, you know. And I think that's why people turn to, you know, YouTubers and other people in the space for that kind of help, because there's not much of it out there in a well structured kind of way, you know.
Yeah, that's and of course that's a great explanation of how you get new people on board. And it also kind of reminds me when I'm thinking about a toaster, is the ways in which a toaster is quite different from crypto in that you don't have to explain to people why they need a toaster, and then once they get it and they know how to use it, they don't need to be taught what to do with it. They know they know they need it to make their bread all crispy, and so they put their bread in, they go boom, and then they
Well,
get their thing
that's
out.
true now.
Mm-hmm.
That's true now. But think about when the toaster was first invented.
Yeah,
What were they doing before?
put it
How
in
did
the
they get
oven.
bread to get toasted? It was like you had to stick it in an oven, or you know. So then you get to this like, oh, there's a newfangled contraption where you just put the slices in this thing, you press it down, like. So yeah, I mean that's always the case with every new thing that is replaced an old system. You know, when you're talking about here's how we did it, and this has been working for shit. We've been toasting bread over fire for thousands of years, you
Yeah,
know. But well, now how do we do it? Now, okay, well, wow, there's this great new contraption called a toaster, and it takes two slices of bread, but people had to be taught how to do it, and that not everyone was using it right away, and same thing with like cell phones.
yeah,
Cell phones just not like, oh, here's the technology, oh, it's so easy, everyone knows how to use it, and boom, now everyone has one. I mean, it took decades for everyone to get to a point where they had cell phones. I mean, now even still people around the globe, there's people who don't have cell phones, which is probably is still a really large part of this population. Not in
yeah,
the U.S.
absolutely.
probably, but still, yeah, there's people who don't have them or don't know how they work very well, and so there is always going to be that learning curve. It just right now we're really early in that learning curve for Bitcoin and for cryptocurrencies, and some things obviously are adopted a lot faster and quicker because they are easier to understand than maybe cryptocurrencies at this point.
Yeah, and that's funny because the toaster to the smartphone comparison kind of shows a lot how the space is a little bit different, because even before the toaster existed, people knew they wanted toasty bread. And now you have a machine that just, if they know how to use it, it does that for them. But like with crypto, you don't know what you're supposed to do with it once you get it, really, in a lot of cases. But with the smartphone, I remember my own struggles back in the day. I was like, even though I'm the consummate smartphone user today, for a while, I grew up on a cattle ranch. It was a little bit of a proto boomer back in the day. And I didn't understand text message. I didn't get why people would do that if you can just call or send an email. Like I didn't get
Right.
the point. And then I also didn't get apps. I got so mad at apps because I didn't understand what they're for. I was like, I'm just going to open the web browser in the app, like the Chrome or whatever, in the smartphone,
Right.
and just go to Twitter or whatever else I need right from there. I didn't understand why you needed a dedicated app, and they made me mad because I didn't understand why all these apps being thrust on me. And now, of course, I kind of get it. It's one of those sorts of things too. It's like, why do you need a wallet? Like, why do you need another wallet? Why do you need, cold storage? Why do you need, and then people just be like, I just want my bank app to do this. And then eventually I think that people are initially going to feel like we just want a Coinbase, which is going to be our crypto bank. And there's also going to be eventually a tide turning where people start to become comfortable with the idea of the technology and be like, well, I'm going to store a lot of this on my own. And then everyone might use a Coinbase type thing, might have also a personal spending wallet, and then have their little hardware wallet, which takes me back to like the granny story. And that reminds me of, I was trying to set up my own mother with a hardware wallet. And I was just saying like, all right, so now here you're going to go. I was trying to explain about writing down, the recovery phrase. I'm like, okay, well, now you're going to get these words and you're going to write them down. She's like, oh, I already wrote some down. What do you mean you already wrote them down? I already did it. We didn't get to that stage yet. Like, I just came up with my own and wrote them down. I'm like, that's not how it works. You can't just come up with random words and then they're associated with the money and a little stick there. You have to take the words they gave you and write those down. Otherwise, you just like it doesn't work. And just that like that point, at some point, people are going to be thinking about their backups. Like people don't usually do safes very much these days, like a physical safe. Not many people do. I mean, I know there are some, but I think that people are going to start to, when they realize they don't have to store big pallets of cash or something that can just be stolen that easily, I think that you will find a little bit of a transition on that. But so in all this education stuff you've been doing, have you run into the dreaded YouTube strike situation yet?
No,
No.
I've never had an issue with it. I've definitely seen a lot of my friends, crypto friends, have issues with YouTube. They get strikes for no reason, or their channel gets shut down for no reason. It's been happening pretty consistently here over the last year or two. But I've never had any issues. I don't know. Honestly, I kind of attribute that to the style of my content. It's not clickbaity. It's not
It's not scammy.
It's not scammy. I mean, even though a lot of times, the content itself is not scammy, but the video title and the thumbnail seem like they could be scammy.
Yeah.
Right. Just based on those things.
That chart going up. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, so I think that's a big part of it. And so all my stuff is very focused on educational content. I post in the educational category of YouTube. Maybe they're posting in investment or other things. I'm not sure how YouTube decides, who's going to get strikes or who's going to get shut down.
Yeah.
But no, I haven't had any issues with it.
It's funny because there was an era when this started, when people I started to see complaints about, oh, my channel got demonetized, oh, it got shut down. And every time I was looking at them, I'm like, yeah, you would be the one that they go after. Like, no offense, but there's some sketchiness going on. But now it's being, people who absolutely have no business in that territory. And so, I would put my friend Naomi Brockwell as kind of the gold standard for crypto and other educator type things. She's been in the business for decades now, not just of crypto, but of other stuff, just does really well, concise, researched kind of stuff. And then when she starts getting strikes, I think a lot of that honestly was not crypto related. It was mostly talking about Corona and other things like that, which, maybe just from saying the Rona, all of a sudden my channel is about to be taken down, but who knows? But when people like that started getting demonetization and strikes and stuff, I started to really care a little bit more. And then of course a couple towns over from where I'm at is where the LBRY offices are, where the decentralized YouTube thingy, which is where most of your stuff that I watched were on, of course, because I make a conscious effort to unfortunately not pump your YouTube count. Sorry for that, but I pump your LBRY accounts.
I love people watching me on LBRY too. Yeah, I'm on quite a few decentralized platforms, and so supporting people there is important.
And some people have pointed out that maybe LBRY is the most used decentralized application in the world today, because I know LBRY.TV, the web, the YouTube front end for that, in August got over 4 million visitors, and that's, in the crypto world, is pretty respectable. And I don't know what other, like, I'm sure there's 4 million monthly Bitcoin users, but how usy are they? Like, how many actually touch their keys it's probably way fewer than that. It's probably just a few thousand, to be honest. Like, as far as when your point about gaming being one of those big ones, I think the gaming and content / identity and stuff is going to be way before alternative money becomes mainstream. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, alternative money becoming mainstream, it really kind of already is. Now, mainstream adoption from a large populace is a little bit of a different thing than, something being kind of synonymous with, a larger group of people. When you start major corporations and companies, betting on Bitcoin, it's something that's not necessarily going to be going away at this point. Most people have probably heard about it. There's, I feel like there's very few people who have just like, no, I've never even heard the word Bitcoin before. What is this thing? They may know jack shit about it. They may not be interested or invested in any kind of way. But I think at this point, it's become something that people are at least familiar with, even if they've never, looked at it or have any kind of knowledge about it. You know, gaming is one of the is a very similar thing. I've been a gamer since I was a kid, man. Gaming was not cool.
I remember.
It was for geeks. It was for nerds. It was not what cool kids did. It wasn't what cool people did. I've been a gamer since, you know, yeah, I used to play tabletop Dungeons and Dragons games, and then, you know, console games from Atari on up, and then building my own PCs when I was like 12, and, you know, doing PC gaming and stuff like that. So it was never a cool thing. It was never the thing that everyone was doing. Now, that doesn't mean that people didn't know about games. They knew there was an Atari. They had probably heard the word Nintendo or Super Mario. But does that mean they owned a system and were playing it?
Probably not.
No, it doesn't mean that it was any less mainstream. It just didn't have the same sort of adoption that you would think. But now look at gaming. Everybody and their mama plays games.
Yeah, pro athletes. You see a lot of like the coolest people on the planet doing it.
Right, exactly. Now, people, you know, kids in school now, they look up to the people who are the best gamers, not the best football players or the best soccer players or the best whatever players. Sports is you know, kind of taking this U-turn a little bit, and now the nerds are the cool athletes, and they're the ones that are dominating the arena with millions of people watching them and cheering them on. And it's just kind of, it's crazy how things have changed in that respect. So I think that, you know, we're going to get there with what we're doing in cryptocurrency. I think it'll be woven into a lot of existing industries in that kind of way where it's just seamless, but it makes things work better than they do now. And that's really the goal here, I think, with what we're doing, in particular with gaming. When you can say, hey, incorporating blockchain into your game makes it work 20% better, or you can make 20% more profit, or you can get 20% better metrics, or, you know, whatever it may be. That's when we're really winning, you know. And I think that is a seamless thing behind the scenes. And so there's not people out there like, I'm a huge fan of LEDs.
Of course,
no one cares. They're not like fans of LEDs. They're fans of the fact that you know, it's cheaper, or you're getting better or longer quality light, or, you know, sweeter looking TVs, or, you know, or a million applications, better grown vegetables with these things. And so I think that, you know, yeah, but exactly, it's a back end technology that, you know, does have a front end that is public and visible and is important for sure. But it's also one of those things where people don't give a shit about the back end, man. They just want things to work. Most people don't care. They just want convenience. They want to be easy, and they want it to be easier and better than what they had before. And if it's not, then most people aren't going to use it.
Yeah, the gaming parallels to all that remind me of a friend of mine who, while he was a martial arts competitor in Taekwondo, and during that time, he was also, I believe, the top-ranked Halo 3 player in the world. He was like a hardcore gamer, and then he used to play RuneScape a ton. And when he played RuneScape, he found out that you could sell RuneScape gold for real money. And so he would go and mine RuneScape gold all day long. But pretty quickly he figured out that, you know, that's not efficient, and he realized that they kicked bots pretty easily. So he had a little mouse events bot that would literally just move his mouse and prescribe things. So he had his little RuneScape characters mining gold all day long through like a mouse events thing while he was doing other things, and which is very similar to, I guess, you know, proof of work cryptocurrency mining. You just like solving a little puzzle, generating tokens for that, and then at some point they've managed to take out almost all the RuneScape bots at the time. He managed to pull half of his offline just in time, but he still lost like half of his RuneScape gold, but the half that he had was worth more than double. Like, it was worth more than what he originally had before. So then you get to be like a token burn kind of a thing. You can start to see like supply and demand of stuff to where, or stock burn or whatever. And then where even though he has fewer tokens, they're worth more. And it's like you get that economics lesson within the gaming. You get the mining proof of work kind of thing. And that kind of world, if you just take that, they don't need to know or care about crypto, but then they get into it and they already understand how it works. And it just, you know, it's kind of like it's almost like, you know, is gaming for crypto, or is crypto for gaming, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, gamers make the most sense for a mainstream adoption of crypto because they're already very familiar with the value of digital assets or digital items. And a lot of people aren't.
Yeah. And arbitrary digital assets too. It's not just,
just there's already,
make
you know,
up some random thing.
Right, the digital asset market, you know, in video games is you know, already like $20+ billion, $60+ billion a year. That's a massive market there, And so you look at like, well, who's doing that? It's people who are comfortable with valuing things that are of just a digital nature. And everyone's always like, well, what gives this value and what gives that value? It's only digital. It's not real. It's not physical. You can't hold it. Like, come on, guys, get with the program. The fact of the matter is that you're living, if that's the way you look at life, then you're living very far behind the times. And, you know, you're going to end up being a pets.com where you're just left in the dust of what's going on in the boom of you know, future technologies here. So
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, that's one of the main things and the reasons why I think gaming is going to lead the way with real mainstream adoption is because gamers are already okay and they're comfortable with, you know, these transacting in you know, digital assets and the valuing of them and the scarcity and rarity of them, and you know, knowing that they do hold value.
Yeah. They're already used to imaginary worlds created from nothing having real world value. And, and it's just a very easy step over to just see, oh, this is just like that, but different. Well, it's,
Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing back in the day. I was playing Ultima Online, which was one of the first
mm-hmm,
ever MMORPGs to, you know, to ever establish. It was like one of the
mm-hmm.
first one, and you know, I loved that game, and but I got very addicted to it, and I got to a point where I was like, okay, I got to get rid of this account, and I sold my account with gold and stuff like that I had mined, and you know, over the time I collected, and I sold that on eBay. But all those things are against most games tosses, even today. You know, most games don't have built-in markets. You're not allowed to go sell, you know, assets to other people, even though it happens in a ton of games that's not supposed to be happening.
Of
And I
course.
think that's really what, you know, blockchain helps with gaming too. Is it, you know, changing that you know, that the way that those things work. You know, shifting that paradigm. So you know, we're building in the markets now, and you know, the company is getting secondary residuals or third or fourth or fifth. You know, depending on how many times it's traded, and so there's a lot more potential for future revenue with these types of blockchain based systems. You know, if they're done right, because you know, you're giving the actual ownership to the gamers instead of saying, well, really, you just kind of, you know, you don't really necessarily own this item. You just, you know, it's our item, but you technically have it on the server, and if we decide, you know, you did something wrong, we can take it from you. So you don't really technically own it. It's locked in their actual, you know, in their actual servers that are centralized. So.
Yeah. Well, this seems like it's probably a good juncture to wrap the whole thing up. Where can people find more about the stuff that's important to you?
So you can find all of the stash related content and
Mm-hmm.
links and stuff on my website, Crypto Stache, Stache, .com. And you know, have links to all my stuff. So YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, LBRY, Theta, also a decentralized platform. And then some other ones like Uptrend and Hive, like Peaked and, you know, Peepeth and Float and, you know, a bunch of others that I'm on out there. So I definitely love supporting all the crypto-based social media sites too.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks again for being on. Definitely illuminating chat. And everyone go check out his stuff and learn what the granny learned, which is how to copy and paste and more. I'm sure a lot more
Yep.
than that.
Yep. Start there if you need to.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.